All right, we're recording now. Why? I'm trying to get my chest open up here. There we go.
Okay, so so this is something that I've been thinking about a lot about the future of education in, I guess, the West, because that's where I'm most familiar with it, specifically America, and the way that
COVID
has,
19.
yeah, the way that that has. I really hope that this has a lasting impact on education. I really hope that this is the thing that forces people to say, you know what, we can learn all this crap on our own.
Yeah. Create just a slew of autodidacts.
It's an autodidact.
Well, someone who's autodidactic is basically a self-learner, self-teacher.
Oh, okay. I learn a new word every day.
It's a good one. I like that one. It seems non-English.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, but what I was thinking about, I was talking to Stone Cold 316 over there earlier about the uselessness of the BA, of
Right.
the bachelor degree. And if it's not one of the, what you call it, boner hardest sciences that's super relevant to your career. And I guess maybe another exception would be education, because when I was taking education classes, I was taught protocols and things that I really did use every single day on the job. Most of the rest of it is such filler to me,
Right.
and I know that there's this lofty idea about, oh well, we need to give them this liberal, open-minded education. And it's like when you actually go into these universities, do you find students that have a rapacious thirst for knowledge? I'm not seeing it.
No. Like it's people laying back, being social, people that really that whatever that lesson, and this is just the general rule. I see like whatever that lesson is for the day, this could be very easily taken in and digested at home.
So I'm going to argue with you there. Surprise, surprise. Hi, Pangburn.
Hey,
Hi,
hey!
Metalwork.
I
Stone
was gonna
Cold.
say There's a familiar voice.
It's Ola.
Hi,
Hi.
Ola.
I'm going to disagree. I think the community learning with a group, is a completely different way from learning at home. So I'm not going to argue with you that you can't. There's a goodly amount you can't do at home. You can do a bigly amount. But the things you learn in school, away from your parents, away from your bedroom, away from your own little world, where you're not challenging your life, outside in the big world, where you are challenging your life every day, that's where you really learn fast. And it's where you get practical lessons. And you need practical as much as theory, you'll agree that.
Yeah, so I agree with the part about, I mean, especially in education, I agree that no amount of learning about educational theory is going to compare to being in front of a classroom of
Yeah, I agree
students.
with that. For what I was talking about is most lessons that will contribute to your BA. That's kind of what I was arguing, but yeah.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of what you're talking about there, Ola, is actually is not done the way it ought to be done. If it was actually done in that environment, and I've had a couple of classes that were done like that, like where the classroom's small, we're in small groups, we're having discussions amongst each other, and then sharing what we've learned, like the classical education model.
Yeah.
That's not what most lectures are, though, right? Most lectures are somebody standing there with a yellow legal pad where the yellow paper was probably white at some point, and it just turned yellow over the past 3 decades from him reading off the same notepad that he's
Totally,
had.
totally.
Okay, I get that, and I respect. I think whichever one of you said it maybe depends on doing it a different way or doing it a better way. I have definitely sat in lectures where it would have been better to watching something on television. That's happened. But I've also been in lectures where my whole life has been lifted up. You know, a whole genre has been opened up to me in the first 5 minutes of the lecture beginning because the lecturer is so good. And then you don't get that from the screen, even with the lecturer there. I watch loads of stuff on YouTube of obviously amazing people talking, and I don't get the same thing I got from sitting inside a lecture hall with an amazing person in front telling Jane Austen like it's funny. And then trying to explain to people, Jane Austen's funny, I promise you it is. But you have to have met this lecturer who explained it to us, who read it to us.
Yes.
That's just because, well, you're biased though, because you just fancy Mr. Darcy.
That is true. 100% true.
So
Busted.
it's interesting, Eliot. Is it Eliahu or Eliyahu? Eliyahu. It's interesting how I started off. It just kind of bled into this by saying autodidact, because I think what Ola is kind of alluding to is that not everyone is going to find it very constructive being in their own individual learning environment. And I think maybe it's just it's not as common because I don't think most people are autodidactic in the sense where they're going to be sitting at home, where most people are going to be, watching Netflix or, I don't know, out hiking instead of at home under their own fruition, just for fun, relearning calculus or something like that.
Yes, most people do not do that, which is why, at least at the high school level or at the middle school level, I'm all for there being laws for compulsory attendance, because we're not going to sit here and pretend that when the kid's at home, he's just going to be doing all his assignments that he's getting assigned by his teachers, which is like, when I was teaching in New York City, it was like there's a law. It's still around. I advocated for its removal, but it fell on deaf ears. There's a law that says that a student can't fail based on lack of attendance.
Right.
And the reason why that law is in place is, I guess, if a student was like in a hospital all semester or something, and then like they got their work delivered to them. But that to me is something that you can do on a case-by-case basis, because the actual result of a rule like that is a bunch of students say, well, looks like I don't have to go to school. Yeah. And then at the end of the semester, they come in 2 weeks prior and they're like, so where's all my work that I could just go ahead and do a half-assed job of to make the bare passing grade?
Well, if that's what they want to do, though, why not let them do it? Because I think if you having that rule there safeguards the cases I'm thinking of immediately. Off the top of my head, I can think of 3 cases exactly where one girl was in hospital for the most part of her 14th year at school. Another case where one girl had a difficult home life, and so she was at home for arguably nearly 2 years of her most important years. And she had to study all by herself and couldn't get into school. And then another girl when we were little, who her family were farmers, and they would just keep her home half the week. They didn't have time to bring her into school. And these people would absolutely get left behind if there wasn't the exceptions made automatically for them. They wouldn't even pass the test. And yet they all did well enough in the end of the day. They all did well enough.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm saying that I would be in favor of there being a rule in those extenuating circumstances. What I wouldn't be not in favor of is the way the rule is written now is just a blanket statement that for whatever reason, if you're absent, then you come in 2 weeks prior and just get all your makeup work. So
no, you need the blanket rule. Otherwise, those people, maybe the one in hospital would have been okay, but the other 2 would have been done over. They wouldn't have got anything. They wouldn't have been able to sit their exams, and they wouldn't have been allowed to pass because they wouldn't have been to school enough. And yet they did sit their exams and they did pass through their own hard work. So the blanket rule is there to save them, to save what I'm going to say could be 2/3 to people. We don't know.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm just not convinced by it because of the amount of abuse I've seen of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to. I think behavioral analysis of the general student needs to be taken into consideration in these things. And that's kind of why I was bringing up, like, most people are not good self-learners, self-teaching. But there is also a question, like, if you're going into post-secondary education, you're spending the money, why the fuck are you not completely, in the work?
Well, yeah.
What are you doing there?
That's the other thing. Yeah.
It's like,
so Stephen, obviously, Pangburn, Steven Pinker.
Yeah.
He's consistently ranked as one of the greatest professors at Harvard.
And he's also one of my favorite human beings on this planet. Like, spending time with Pinker is like, any time I get a chance to exchange email or in person or whatever, he is the epitome of the great human.
Oh yeah. I mean, I got to say like 10 words to him at a book signing, and cool. He was like, "You're kidding. Wow. How about that?" And I was like, "Huh."
Dude. And even his work, like Enlightenment Now, is essentially my Bible. It really it puts things into perspective in such a beautiful way, where the person, the nihilist going into the reading, talking about how crappy the world is right now, comes out with like this bright view of like, holy crap, I feel so refreshed to be alive.
Yeah, it's an uncommon feeling amongst like this type of community. Right. But so he's ranked as one of the best professors at Harvard, one of the best at Harvard, which is one of the best universities in the country, supposedly. And he has said that about 50% of his students attend his class. The best education in the world at the best university by the best lecturer, and they just can't seem to find it worth their time.
Isn't that nuts?
On top of paying all that dough.
Yeah, it's shocking, man. Well, this really does, like, this is why I like in these social settings, I think something to look at is how much does, and I'm just going to be blunt in saying it, how much is pussy and dick playing into this? And what I mean by that is, like, the pursuit of mates, the social implications of your place in the hierarchy in class. Like, is that dominating really the mind? Like, let's say 80%, and then there's this 20% leftover of, well, if I have time, I'll do the work. If the social implications allow for it, then I'll do the work. I've always kind of, and I'll be honest about it, I've always been that way, like in post-secondary, in like the standard post-secondary model, or even like in high school. I had such a hard time not just like being controlled by those let's say social opportunities.
Pangburn, you weren't. I didn't even know if you went to college or not. I guess I just never cared.
I studied theater and live event production, and I did do some elective studies in business and in philosophy, but yeah, no, my I guess my formal it's a diploma, actually. My formal diploma is in theater.
Well, that actually sounds to me like it'd be a field that is motivated a lot more by passion than by social hierarchy, because being a theater actor is honestly, isn't it kind of seen as like kind of gauche? Like, it doesn't seem that glamorous.
Yeah, it's not glamorous. It's the field of the weird. Anyone who's in theater, it's where all the rejects and weirdos hang out. So yeah, being amongst my fellow rejects and weirdos is where I felt at home. So
the rejects and weirdos are down at the Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, I would say that has definitely taken over.
Oh, you guys are missing out. Really, you're missing out on a wonderful dimension of people.
Here I thought all the cool kids were playing chess these days.
Sorry, was that demented or dementia? Dimension.
Dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as far as your whole social hierarchy, social dominance thing, it depends. I definitely think there's a lot of that with the brand of school you go to. Like,
Sure.
oh, well, my father plays golf with the state senator.
Oh my
Something,
God. Sound the alarm.
and then my father makes one phone call, and I'll get into Yale or something. Crap.
Oh, you can just, there is a word
you
for
don't-
it, douche.
You don't have that system right in theatre. Pangburn will back me up or completely disagree. You don't have that same hierarchy in theatre. You do have a different hierarchy, a very different hierarchy.
Yeah.
But regarding education, I went into theatre for a bit for the excitement of it. For one of the things was, it's an amazing way to learn things. It is.
Oh, yeah.
I wish all things could be learned the way you've got a play going on in 6 weeks. You have to have this play on, and you have to learn everything
Hell
in
yeah.
6 weeks. You have to learn absolutely everything about things you've even heard of, and you do it. Do it because it's like your life is on the line.
Honestly,
Because
Ola,
in a few,
like,
in a few,
you're talking about that right now, and the goosebumps are
yeah.
rising on my arms. The hair on the back of my neck. I'm tearing up.
I know.
Just literally you
I know.
talking about that. Like,
Yeah.
there is an artistic vibration in me right now that has, like, I'm almost drooling. Holy shit. Yeah, like, and I don't engage with that enough.
No. But it's hard to explain if you haven't been there in it, because it's like your life depends on learning, and it could be anything. It could be golf. Your life depends on it, and you go. And I mean, the people who are doing it big time in Hollywood, it's different, but that's where they started, and
Yeah.
they're still doing the same thing, only on a huge scale. And that's why they get paid big money. But they go up and they learn these things in very short times, and that's why they're so egotistical. Your whole life depends on you being able to tango, or whatever it may
Yeah.
be. It's,
Yeah, you're bringing me back. You're bringing me back to when I was 12 years old doing Fiddler on the Roof, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
okay. Then
Yeah,
yeah, you
there we
felt
go.
it. And if only standard education could give you that sense of amazingness, of being inside the experience, of becoming whatever it is you're learning,
Yeah.
it would be so magic.
Yeah, there is, and just the appreciation for the mind and the appreciation of people. Theater puts everyone in a very vulnerable state. It demands it. It demands vulnerability, and it doesn't matter if you're a sound designer, a lighting designer, actor on stage, director. It demands that you are emotionally, professionally, spiritually vulnerable, because there's all of these transcendent artistic moments that occur almost every day that are just you have to get to a place where you get used to that. And most of us in our everyday life don't experience art in that way. Like, it's more, we experience it through, like, the and this is what I talk
A
about
much more healthy way.
yeah sure in a much more, I would say, measured way, measured to what you expect to be dealing with, type thing. But it's I don't know, it can be difficult to explain, like, the experience of that and getting used to it. It's
Well, people don't. I think there's an awful lot of nervous breakdowns in the
oh, hell
theatrical
yeah.
world.
Yeah.
And
The show
there's
must
a
go
hell of a
on.
lot of alcoholics.
Yeah.
I can tell you story after story about all the alcoholics I met in theatre world.
Yeah. Well, I used to experience so much pain. Like, if I was playing a role, and I found myself always in these tragic roles, like playing the abusive husband of someone, or playing like this hyper depressed movie buff who's hanging out in this lonely theater and meets this girl. It's like these existences I'm playing are just like, and trying to, like, embodying it and then trying to shake it off. I was never good at shaking it off. So that's was my inability as an actor to do that.
Well, that's why I'll always think of Eliyahu as the fiddler on the roof. Whenever I see him, it's the beard. But whenever I see him, I think of the fiddle and the fact that he lives on a roof.
Yeah. Oh, what are some fiddler tunes? My
If I
brother.
were a rich man,
Yeah. If I were a rich man, yeah, my brother,
that's great.
my younger brother played that role. I'll never forget that.
I was the understudy for not Tevye, the butcher.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I can't remember his name. His name's escaping me.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
but
I posted, just by the way, if anyone wants to look in the artistic inspiration area of the Discord, I posted a bunch of pictures from my old theater and performing days. If anyone wants to take a
we
look,
must see this.
but
We must.
there's one of I unfortunately I did post one with my shirt off because I was playing Jesus, and the
Oh,
show
no.
starts with my shirt off. But
Oh,
eventually
no.
they do.
I hope there's no nudity. I don't want to see that.
It's not full nudity. It's just the
Where?
just the top
well,
half.
don't bother then. Where are we supposed to be looking?
So
I'm not desperately searching, but where? Where did you say this?
in the artistic inspiration tab, you'll see a long list of them. So you'll see I also played
See anything?
the captain in HMS Pinafore is on there. Danny
Did you
Zuko
have to
in
go
Greece.
shirtless for that one too?
No, I think although there have been quite a few roles in history where I found my shirt off. I don't know why, but
Me too.
Maybe-
That's the weird thing about theatre. There's an awful lot of topless work.
there is actually
Much more than you'd imagine.
I designed I wrote original orchestrations for dance troupes for a bit of my career when I first came to Vancouver, and I noticed like every single modern dance piece someone's nude, and I'm like, oh, this is modern dance. Someone's like, and I started saying it ain't modern dance unless someone's getting naked.
That's true.
Yeah, it's, but I noticed
And you
that
don't see that in normal high school.
no,
production.
definitely not.
No.
it's great.
I got it. I finally saw it. Okay. You can all die happy now.
Yeah, that's me as Jesus Christ. There's a
Yeah, you look really religious.
I did an interview for that show, and I remember the interviewer asking me, because I think everyone assumed I was this religious nut playing Jesus. They asked me, so have you noticed any like kind of like extra energy or power coming from somewhere since you took on this role? And I was like, well,
Yeah.
you know, when I walk down to this sandwich place every day when we're broke for when we're having a break, every time I walk up to the intersection, automatically the walk sign comes on. So it's almost as if like some kind of power is in me, is turning that walk sign.
Yes. So Stone
Jaywalking. You sorry?
Stone asked a
Joe?
question. Stone asked a question in the text chat regarding education. Although this, topless, divinely inspired Jesus is definitely capturing my attention. Stone says, is the average increase in annual income for someone who decides to get an undergrad education worth it? Is it dependent on field of study? Okay, so the first question, the average increase in income for someone who decides to get an undergrad education worth it? Well, on an individual level, absolutely. Selfishly, yes. You want to get the undergrad education. You want to get that useless piece of paper that's not so useless after all, because it's going to help you get higher pay and higher income. But on a societal level, this is the equivalent of the person in the front row needs to see the concert better, so they stand up. And so then the people behind can't see, and then so they stand up, and then they stand up all the way back. And so now no one can see the concert better, but everyone's just stood up. So the billions and billions of dollars poured into it on the whole is useless. But for me, on a personal level, yeah, I want to get ahead. So that's my answer to that one.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's when you're in one of those fields where the piece of paper credentials matter, and I think a lot of the time in a lot of those fields, especially if there's insurance involved, let's say with architecture, architecture is like, okay, you get the highest accreditation possible, and then you kind of want a really well-rounded architect with a good piece of paper, so that you can feel certain that your structure that's being built is going to be sound, and that you're not going to lose out because the architect didn't know what they were doing. But is that really a measure? Is that a good measure of the efficacy of that architect?
Well, if you had to choose a metric, whether they had a degree or whether they saved a construction firm $100,000 on a project,
right?
You want to go with the proof in the pudding that they actually did the work and they actually saved the firm money.
So I agree with that, definitely. Yeah, it's like Neil deGrasse Tyson brings up an example of if he's wanting to work with a mathematician, and he asks a simple question about like, what is how tall is the Empire State Building or something like that. You'll have the one person who will jump online and figure it out just based on the collection of data that exists online. But then there's the other person who can actually use mathematics to figure out the height of the Empire State Building by just measuring the shadow that it puts on a certain area, and then extrapolating however they need to mathematically and figuring that out. So
that's like a good, like, okay, well, how tall is each floor, and then if there's 108 floors, and you can do something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So see, Just Listening says it's brilliant. Convince people they need the paper, then indoctrinate via education as they get it. Over time, more people have the paper until everyone has the paper. Now the paper's meaningless. Everyone fights for another better paper, which requires, you guys, more indoctrination. Well, look, I'm not. I don't like to shit on the paper that much, but the piece of the smoking gun that I have here that proves that I have 2 points that are not mine. Neither of these are mine. All I'm doing right now is parroting a book called The Case Against Education. One of the points is, if you really cared so much about the education, I can't think of a university that actually cards people at the door and says, hey, are you actually a student here? You could just go. I can just go to any of my local universities and sit in on these lecture halls and listen.
100%. That is really interesting. I've never really thought of that.
Didn't a psychiatrist recently release his Psychology 101 thing for free online or something?
Oh, dude, YouTube is actually like you can get full Stanford lectures on most topics now online, and YouTube is part of where that's housed.
But it's important to have your tutor grade your paper, right? And it's important to have to send in a paper. So it's not that you're not getting the education, but you're not participating in the education, and you're not getting the feedback that you get by actually being there. And I think they're important. Maybe when you get older and you're really great at teaching yourself and absorbing stuff, and the paper really doesn't matter. But I don't think you should give the idea to anyone listening that, they don't need to go to college. What you get out of college is a lot more than just the lectures.
Well, I think
you get debt.
Well, so
you get that.
so I think I think Ola, I think for some would definitely agree with you that there is. Well, I think everyone would agree that there's more to be had, but from an education perspective, like when they talk about their experience with professors, I know some people who didn't have what they would call a helpful professor for their entire schooling, but they got their degree and whatever, and they kind of feel quite cynical about the whole education thing, even after going through it. But they really value the friends they made and contacts and things like that. But then I think there's other people who will really value like, you know, the feedback from the professor and the whole, you know, that whole experience. Kind of all
but
parts.
actually just having to step up to the plate, so to speak, and write the essay, you know,
Sure.
hand in your thesis.
Sure.
Not you know, your small tiny thesis, on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, and have someone else grade it. I mean, that's in itself, I think anyone who does that regularly is really brave, because it's so brave to get other people to grade you. And it's something that, you know, an employer is looking for the bit of paper because they want to see, can you do it? Because you're going to be working for them. And you may be really brainy, but if you can't do that, that employer might not be able to employ you. Do you see? So you're getting, it's a genuine education, but also that paper means that as well, that you can work for someone.
Yeah, you know, maybe. Yeah, I hear that like I know what you're saying. It's like what it would show to me, say if I was the employer, is that this person can definitely do work, like they can definitely do at least this kind of work, this level of, okay, attention to, let's just presuppose that they met the deadline, you know, attention to deadline, attention to doing a complete work. And also, but, you know, for me, what was actually in that work would be very important, too. I don't know how everyone else feels, but.
Yeah, but how do you explain to someone what you can do? So, you know, me just talking to Eliyahu about some of the things he's done makes me realize how dedicated he is. I can see that in the things he's done. He doesn't need a piece of paper now to convince me he's dedicated.
Right.
But how do you get that's talking to someone over months. So how do you get, in a small interview, how do you describe to someone how dedicated you are, how able you are?
Yeah, it's really tough. And Jordan Peterson actually talks about the interview process and how, like, if you're not a good behavioral analyst, which most people aren't, it's very easy for you know, someone who's really good at doing an interview to talk their way into a job and inevitably waste a lot of people's time because they just don't have the right stuff to do that job. But the interview was just so good that they can't.
He said that. Yeah. I just read his book, 12 Rules for Life, last week. And there's a part where he talks about a woman that it was so messed up, so broken. You know, had no idea who she was.
Right.
That's the way he put it. Like she needed to sort herself out pretty hard. He's like, and somehow she's in a high-powered corporate job, and she's like, despite not, and he's like, how she finessed her way into this job, I'll never know. You know.
Yeah.
Must have just been quite charming, I guess.
Yeah. Well, look, and people who are really good with people are very good at getting these jobs, are really good at getting the job over the you know, the academic with the crazy resume, and versus the person who has, like, you know, they've done the work, they have a resume, but in the interview it's like they really enforce this belief in the interviewer that they can really, really make a difference for them. And they're sold. Like, by the end of it, it's like the rest of the interviewees that come in are just like, but what about that other guy who really inspired me? So it's, the interview process, basically what I'm trying to say is it's kind of a crapshoot where you know, you might, you know, the process might lead you to a really good selection. But maybe not. Maybe you're going to get
I don't think it's a crapshoot. I think that's really downplaying, you know, it's the number of systems. I mean, people who do well in interviews often have been to 100 interviews before they get the job they want. I mean, I think we have some interviewers here, don't we, in the group?
Yeah, I am one.
I've just been interviewing all week, both directions.
It's a interviewing.
So would you say it's a crapshoot, or would you say that, you know, actually it's a skill? Interviews are skill.
I think it's a skill. I've gotten better at it. I would chalk all of my career, mobility, up to my gift of gab and personality, and not my skills.
Yeah, so when I say crapshoot, I'm talking about the crapshoot being that you, as good of an interviewer as you are, I think that there are candidates out there that are still going to be able to pull the wool over your eyes. But obviously, when you do it more, you're going to come up with, especially with related to whatever discipline you're interviewing for, the more experience you get, you're going to come up with better lines of questioning. It's starting to look at things as, okay, is this person able to think creatively? Sometimes people forget that whole thing.
That's how I interview.
Process. Yeah.
I mean, skills can be learned for the most part. Most people, especially in my field, but if you don't have the aptitude to work toward getting better, or at least have some understanding of how to figure out information, not necessarily if you already have it.
Right.
That's more important. And that's a soft skill that's hard to get, hard to tangibly measure. But
he's basically saying is that his career, software engineer or whatever it is, should be replaced with professional Googler.
Yeah, well, that's everyone in this world. I mean, there's very few people reinventing the wheel when it comes to this sort of stuff. It's implementation. There are some people reinventing the wheel, but even those people are standing on the shoulders of giants. And so they're still having to Google the way that they come up with their new invention and the foundations of that. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for you to come up with algorithmic information without a bedrock of math and maybe even C development or whatever other sort of work you're doing.
So it's still your basic education is what can get you to where you need to be. It's education.
No, I think it's such a small piece.
Math, you said.
It's sort of like saying, if you can sing the ABCs, you can learn them backwards and forwards, but you want to become an opera singer, so education is what got you there. No, I mean, you obviously couldn't have ever become an opera singer without learning to first sing your ABCs, but the work that it took of building upon that is, and the experience and the life skills that come along with, not the tangible how to make a note come out of your mouth. That's not the skill that got you there. The skill that got you there was the work, the hard work.
The best singers, pop ones included, are the ones who've gone to loads of singing class. So I'm going to argue what you're saying there. I'm going to say I think actually we're not seeing the amount of work and education people have for doing anything.
Or you mean like, so if you are a great singer, you've put in tons of hours. Yeah. You have to. But the knowledge isn't there. It's the well, I think it's sort of, there is some education required, but like that's putting your nose to the grindstone and practicing.
Yeah, and also a thing about art as well is like, Neil Young is who I would consider to be one of the greater singers out there, and he hasn't had a lick of lessons. He's done a lot of singing, but it's a discipline he doesn't take very seriously. He just sings.
You think he's one of the greatest singers, or you think he's one of the greatest artists?
No, I think he's an excellent singer.
But he's not one of the greatest singers. He's an artist. 100% an artist.
I mean, he's one of the greater voices out there, so I would say singer. I think what you're maybe talking about is like people who have like the, like, would you, Ola, when you say greatest singer, are you including like vocal range in that?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, so I wouldn't include that.
And you're talking about singer the artist. I'm talking about singer the skill and the people who.
I'm thinking about somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, but
when I think of great singer, I think of somebody like Pavarotti.
Yeah,
yes, that's correct.
Yeah, but I don't see. I don't think of it that way, because greatest singer to me is someone who has, really honed in on the craft of what their tones can do, and how to deliver their voice in a meaningful way. And
have they really done that without a single lesson? Because I'm going to be really surprised if someone's done that without a single lesson. Because most of the singers I know who are working professionally as singers, pop, jazz, or whatever, go to lessons. Sinead O'Connor went to lessons. You know, it's not everyone goes to lessons, no matter how punk they look.
Yeah, but it's the application of that that's important, because we also know tons of people that have gone to lessons that have amounted to garbage.
Of course, of
You
course.
know, so they must apply themselves. You know,
making.
well, I mean, like, there's skills outside of the education alone that I think are hard to measure, which is like, and showing initiative, or having some sort of trajectory that's trackable throughout what you have learned. You know, things like that. It's beyond just the skill itself that you've acquired through education.
Yeah, but you stick someone like Dustin Hoffman or Marlon Brando or people that you just think of as giants. They didn't go in without classes. They went to acting classes after acting class after acting class. They dedicated themselves to learning their profession. And every actor will tell you that's what you've really got to do. And the actors who are just winging it are not the great actors.
Well, let me put it this way then. So
I disagree.
I know what you're saying, but I feel I feel a lot of what you're talking about there is almost like a trade. It's almost like it's something that teaches you a direct skill. Now, what I was talking about earlier is the BA.
Yeah.
In general, is just a marker for what? A marker to get a sticker on your forehead.
Well, it just shows you've accomplished something that was,
being academic. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
It more shows like seeing things through, right?
What's going to happen is when you graduate from undergrad anyway, and you go into a job, and the job is not really germane to what you've studied, your boss is going to say, "Okay, we'd like to hire you. Now we're going to have to train you." It's like, now your education actually starts because now that you've got the job, now let's actually teach you something useful.
Well, it's kind of like you need to know some language before you can begin. So, right. So it's kind of like the BA gives you a language or a tool belt of things to use, but it's useless. Like, you could give me a paintbrush and I'm not going to paint you the Sistine Chapel. Do you know what I mean? Like, I might have them in my tool belt, but learning how to apply those things is not something that's done in education. Typically, you're not doing that in the in the classroom.
This is where applied learning is what I want to see more of. Like, I want to see more exercises of demonstrating one's ability or showing if someone is actually thinking correctly or incorrectly, not just whether they are able to regurgitate information. Because I don't want to employ someone who can just regurgitate something they read or studied. I don't want that. I want someone.
Well, you can Google that. Who cares?
You can recall Google for that. I want someone who knows how to think, not what to think. And we talk about this a lot when we're talking about high school, but this carries through to the universities as well.
What was the initial point of discussion? Sorry.
Future of education.
Yeah, okay. It's dismal.
Yeah.
Well, that's sorted.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, tell
Class
us how
dismissed.
we can make it not bad.
How we can make
find
it
meaning
not
outside.
bad?
I would say find meaning in your life outside of what title you might have or what job career might get, things like that, because you might not get it.
I got to say, my biggest challenge was the adversity of the other students.
Oh,
interesting.
You mean like dealing with their personalities?
Just the whole social integration, younger people being jerks, bullying, etc.
Well, in the same way that you can choose your own doctor, it's really cool if parents could choose their own teachers.
That's not a popular conversation because it seems people get real uppity about, not uppity, sorry, but up in arms about people having control over what their children do at school, because the state should run that, and people don't like that.
Yeah, well, it's like anytime teachers want to do something autonomous, it's like, anytime a teacher wants to do something like on their own, they're doing so at a risk to their career. Like, just as a really tiny example, although this here's the thing. If you are already predisposed to thinking that the state knows best, then any rule I tell you, you're going to be like, well, it makes sense why the school would have that as a regulation. I mean, they're looking out for the best interests of the students. But it's like if you just take off that thinking cap for a second or put on your thinking cap for a second. And so there's a rule in a lot of public school districts around the country that there's a certain procedure that you're supposed to do when a lesson starts. And they run this same type of format where there's supposed to be a warm-up on the board at the start of class when the students walk in. And then you're also supposed to have the aim on the board, which the aim is, students will be able to solve equations
at the end of this lecture.
Exactly. So you're supposed to have, it's called a SWBAT, S-W-B-A-T. Students will be able to, and then whatever lesson. So,
Hull, I think Hull's trying to ask something.
So I'll just finish this real quick. So I had a coworker that would have the warm-up written on the board, but he wouldn't have the aim written on the board. Because once the warm-up was over, he would have a little 5-minute discussion and he would have the class generate the aim themselves. He's like, so what do you think? So we'll be able to do what by the end of this lesson? And they would discuss it, they'd generate it, and then he'd write the aim on the board. But if the principal was observing him, he'd lose points because the rule was you have to have the aim already on the board when they walk in. It's like, to me, that's just such bullshit. It's like, okay, so you're never going to get highly effective because your aim is written after your warm-up. Now multiply that by 1,000 and you've got all these stupid little rules.
I thought you were going to say children. Stupid little turds.
You've got all these stupid little rules that make it hard for teachers to try to experiment uniquely.
Well, and what I was going to say is hilarious is the psychologist Boris Sidis, the father of William James Sidis, one of the recorder smartest people on the planet supposedly, has basically observed most of what we're observing here, almost a century past now. Meaning that none of this is anything new to the system. It's literally stagnated for about 100 years now, which is not a good sign.
Are you talking about no, that's not true. They switched from a chalkboard to a whiteboard. So
and the Elmo. Don't forget the Elmo.
That's a big difference, I guess.
The camera.
Yeah.
But how we have changed it now. I mean, this year we're changing it as we speak. We don't want to, but we are, because children all over the world are learning in a different way all of a sudden. And I watch my 10-year-old niece doing her lessons, and I see her whole class, and it's well, I won't go into what I think it is, but it's different than what my class was. It's not that much different, but it's different, and it can't stay the way it is. It will change very quickly over the next few years. They will keep a lot of that.
One thing I'd like to know is often you hear folks that like to straw man the homeschool kids and say, oh, you're just going to be antisocial and weird because you don't have any social interaction. Well, hey, how about the 2020 scenario and then continued education from home? Can we look at these children and see if they have lack of social interaction and if it's going to be a problem? And if it's not, can we please stop putting homeless school children at the back of the bus and making them the butt of jokes?
Okay,
you know what I mean? Homeschool children, it's insane.
We're in a really new space. This is
that's old though.
No, yeah, but no child before 2020 was as social as the children in 2020 were. No child was, because you don't have 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds with the ability to talk to anyone in the world. We never had that before. We have it now. We have it now, but it's so new. We didn't have it a few years ago even. We may have had some technology for it, but it wasn't normal for your 5-year-old, your 10-year-old to have a tablet and an iPhone. It is now. It's really changing quickly. So that antisocial stuff, that's from yesteryear already. It's from yesteryear.
Well, I hope so, but there's a different, I would imagine the interactions between other people in real life are going to be, I know they're vastly different than virtual interactions, unless we're going to resign ourselves to the fact that we're not going to be physically in the presence of others very often anymore. And this is the new normal, and the only social IQ you need is the virtual social IQ.
Well,
just because those devices have the capacity to create these interactions. I mean, most parents strongly control the number of people their children are networked to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and another thing I was going to say is, and then for context, I live in Montana. Even with the digital stuff, people's attitudes already, they still are going to seek physical interaction after a certain point. So, I mean, personally, I don't feel like it will ever become the normal just out of the way human psychology is.
Right. But is there a problem with having less physical interaction due to the state of our country or society going forward? Will those when those inevitable physical interactions occur, are we doing them a disservice?
I'd say potentially, although honestly, I don't know the state of the research on that.
Yeah, I mean, how is the trend in social anxiety looking?
Bad, real bad. I think we could say
very bad.
we can say it's getting worse than better.
It's mostly because of social media too.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think this is?
A lot of girls keep killing themselves because of they're getting bullied on social media and shit.
Girls, boys, men kill themselves a lot. It seems,
Yeah.
and they're not necessarily on social media.
Yeah, no,
but it doesn't help their, it doesn't help their numbers.
Jesse Lee Peterson would probably call them beta. By the way, Jesse Lee Peterson Q&A this Friday, tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific. If you want to ask Jesse a question face to face, join the Q&A. I think it's going to be hot.
Do you think it's awesome or weird that he's still on YouTube?
Do you love white teachers?
Do you love white teachers? Yeah, I would say I love all teachers. Do you love white teachers?
That's not what I asked.
That's not what I asked. Do you love black people? Anyways, that'll be fun. And Pinker for February on the podcast.
Steven Pinker?
Probably the Q&A. Yes. Get excited.
I want to know who fashions his George Washington wig. I really want to know. Dude, please come to the Q&A and ask him. He would love that question. I don't care. That's a stupid question.
When he was on Stephen Colbert, and he was talking about genetics, he said, I have a gene that gives me a 90% chance of being bald. And Stephen Colbert is like, so genetics is bullshit, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, he's got a point.
Dude, that is so funny.
Brilliant.
That's sad that it comes up. Like, we have someone here, and I'm making a joke because it's ridiculous, but really, like, people actually want to know those answers, and we have a brilliant person in front of us, and we're going to talk about its hair. The reason why it's funny is because it's ridiculous, but there are people that actually care about that.
Yeah. No, it's a
state of education.
Nothing wrong with a funny question.
Well, it's
the Royal Astronomer.
It means you can take a joke.
Royal Astronomer in Britain, in the UK, who is the top astronomer, on television, got to meet Brian May, the Queen guitarist, also an astronomer. Nice. And Brian May's hair, if you remember, is all those curls.
Oh yeah.
It used to be black, but now it's all long white curls. White curls. And the Royal Astronomer asked Brian May, "Has there ever been someone who looks so like Isaac Newton?" Which, when you Google and see a picture of Isaac Newton, it's the long grey curls. And so there's an example of, yes, when you meet someone with extraordinary hair, the first thing, no matter how clever you are, is you must ask them about their extraordinary hair.
Mm-hmm. I just find it more interesting that they keep it going throughout the years. They cling to the hair, because I mean, Brian May still has the same hair that he had in 1981. Which I find to be.
His wife had the same hair as him for about 10 years as well. His wife had his hair. That was the really weird thing.
Yeah. I find it interesting that people think that it's real hair.
There's
my God!
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be. Have you ever seen what was that movie, Rockstar, with Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah. I love
Same
that
deal.
movie.
He's actually a gay man who has a wig on. That's Brian May. But anyway, we've digressed a lot. Sorry, my fault.
Welcome to the digression hour.
Is this Bobby's seminar? Is that what I'm here for?
TED Talk.
You bet.
Yeah.
Carissa
should have a last word if we're looking for a last word, because Carissa is currently in the education system.
Oh. Also, it's Carissa. I haven't.
I just
Okay,
joined
what
the
if-
server today.
Stone said next, agreed with how to think, not what to think. The question is, how effective can teaching how to think be? Isn't this like trying to teach how to solve IQ tests, whereby even if you can increase those scores by teaching how to approach the IQ type problems, it's limited to those types of situations/questions only, and real life dynamic variables of any problem solving would still be as bad or good.
And I think if you upgrade students with a solid foundation skepticism, this becomes your governing force for problem solving. And I think it will contribute in a positive way to, your approach in mathematics, your approach in biology, your approach in economics. I just think your approach in philosophy, I just think it's going to just be something that continues to pay itself forward.
Yeah, what I've tried to explain with this is, okay, there's no amount of education that's going to make a 100 IQ person into a genius.
No.
But there are a lot of things that you can do that'll make you a much better reader, problem solver, thinker than you already are, that you just don't know about. So like elementary school students, one of the worst things that you can do is so there's two main methods that are taught how to read. If you guys are familiar, you were probably all here taught how to read using phonics. You sound out each letter, and you learn at and then sat, like at, and you learn how to decode that way.
Right.
Well, there are some lunatics out there who think that the better way to teach kids how to read is what's called the sight-see method. If you've heard of it, and the sight-see method is not auditory at all. It is you are exposed to like 1,000 words, the 1,000 commonest words, and you memorize each word as a separate image. Now that's stupid. Now that's good, and like if you're like a really little kid and you're reading picture books, then I guess you can learn how to read using that, and then the words that you don't know you can sort of fill in with context clues. There are just too many rules. There's just too many words to do it that way. And so like if a kid's never taught phonics, then he's going to think he's illiterate.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think he sucks at reading.
Well, that's possible.
With that method, that sounds like that would work much better for, I don't know, like a system of characters opposed to something like ours.
Ultimately, you have to do that with like the alphabet, right? I mean, you just have to memorize this is an A, this is a B.
Yeah, I mean, that's how most all language starts in terms of at least grammar school. I mean, you don't necessarily learn the alphabet if you're not formally educated. I mean, maybe people do that and they're trying to formally educate in the home, but like you can learn language without learning the alphabet or grammar.
That's kind of like me with Russian, where I know the letters and how to write them, but I don't know what they're called.
Well, yeah, and there's a difference between like what you're doing with the language. Like there are people I know that have moved across the world and they've learned the language and they're like, yeah, I could speak this language, but I wouldn't necessarily go to a business meeting and speak this language or write a quality piece of academic literature because it just wouldn't roll, right? They'd be using, it'd be like if we were writing ain't without commas in, proper literature. Or academic papers. It's fine on the street, not so good in the classroom. So
yeah, on the streets we talk a little bit differently,
we don't have to write. We don't have to write in such a formal way. That was actually my wife, being a former English teacher. They didn't teach grammar. This is probably she stopped teaching a couple of years ago in secondary high school. That wasn't part of their curriculum ever, to teach grammar. And actually, right before she left, they stopped teaching novels all the way through. They would use excerpts and pieces of literature to teach the lessons, or they wouldn't have an assignment to read it all the way through, because they thought a waste of the classroom time or home time to teach grammar, rote memorization, and completion of a novel.
Well, there is a discussion there to be had where eventually you just kind of want to throw your hands up in the air and be like, look, none of my students are reading this freaking novel. Like I'm assigning it, and they're just, that's true. They're just not, don't care enough to read chapter 39,532 of Great Expectations. They're Charles Dickens is just paid by the chapter, so he just has 10 filler chapters. And sorry, they just they don't want to read the 39th chapter about Pip whining about Estella. So I guess I could see the merit of you like wanting to read smaller excerpts. But I guess then instead of reading a novel, you could read short stories.
But isn't there some like what sort of sense of accomplishment that people have when they complete a task from beginning to end? And let's say, is it not worth it to say, hey, these kids have completed a book and that's the sense of accomplishment, or is that false accomplishment?
I still feel I finish a book.
Correct. And I'm just wondering if that's just a silly thing that we apply, or if it's truly a fair assessment.
Well, Carissa, when you read a book, when you're assigned a book in school, do you read the whole thing?
No, I never read any of it. Like literally never. This is why I call myself illiterate. I have severe ADHD, so I just can't. I'm not a good example for this one.
So do you think that there's a way that you could practice for concentration?
Yeah, but it's not worth it. Like, I've got by fine without reading.
How about audiobooks?
Audiobooks, well, audiobooks, that's a step up. That's a lot easier, but I don't think a lot of people realize how much of a disadvantage I'm at going into an audiobook as compared to all of these other kids who've been reading for like 10 years and can read at a much higher pace than I ever could with an audiobook.
Right. Like text messages, social media. How about that?
Oh yeah, I do those quickly, of course. But when it comes to like discussions, I can't really do that or motivate myself to read through entire discussions on Discord that easily.
Do you think maybe it's a problem with the? Do you think that maybe it could be due to the fact that the books that your teacher has picked have just sucked?
Probably not. I'll take their word for it on it's great literature.
So would you say that you have no problems processing the language, it's the content?
Yes, it's the content.
Carissa, where would you kind of put you mentioned ADHD, where would you put your IQ spectrum?
Let me think. My mom said I got tested once, so probably above average.
Yeah.
So probably like 75th to 60th percentile is my guess.
So really it is the attention issue that you're always wrestling with, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So one thing because I've had attention issues my whole life when it comes to like sticking to tasks, and when it comes to audiobooks and things like that, and you might want to try this, it might help. It is a very simple thing, and you might try it and it'll just be like, meh. But I walk, like I go out on walks into nature while taking in audiobooks. And it helps me to be doing some kind of automated thing, like walking, especially if I'm wearing like noise canceling headphones, where I don't have the auditory distractions of nature or anything else around me. So I don't know if you've tried that, but.
No, I've not tried that. Sadly, it's pretty cold out here, but I could try that.
Yeah, I pace around my living room while I'm on Discord talking to you guys.
Dude, I'm the biggest pacer in the world. You wouldn't believe it. Like, even when I'm watching a hockey game, I'll all of a sudden be at the other side of the room, and I'm like, what am I doing over here? How did I even get here? I can't even remember.
Yeah, I find it very hard to sit down and read a book with, amongst a lot of distractions. Although when I travel, like on an airplane, I can blast through stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you have nothing else to do. You're stuck. There's no way. There's nothing that could pull you away unless you're like a serious people watcher, and even that's hard on a plane.
I've read that trains are good for that. But yeah, so European countries.
Hey, Harl, just FYI, you're very quiet. I don't know if you can.
I had to turn him up.
Yeah, I'm on the phone, so I'm not sure how good the mic.
Oh, that's better.
Yeah,
I think you just need to talk up a little
I turned
bit.
his voice up.
Okay.
On my side, but.
Okay.
I was gonna say I found the way that I best read is just having a bunch of books I'm looking for, and just going directly to whatever it is I think I need from it, and then eventually, since I cannot focus for long enough to read the whole book, I just focus long enough to find what I need.
Yeah, and Carissa, I don't know what your area of interest is, but there's an audiobook text channel on this Discord that has a bunch of free audiobooks posted if you're looking for anything. But I don't know what your area of interest is. But
that's a good question. I don't know. Still trying to figure that out.
I'm curious as far as attention goes, and people are talking about being on a plane or a train or walking around. I actually found it the hardest to focus on audiobooks or reading a book in a plane or train, because I'm such a people watcher.
It's because you're an alpha
high
male.
alert. Well, me.
I'm not even kidding about that.
Oh well,
you don't
I
trust
don't know
you don't trust very much the people around you, I would say.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I do have a bit of an anxiety, not anxiety, but high alert when it comes to where am I, where's the exits, and who the hell are these people.
Right.
But when I'm at home, I can sit and read and I usually throw on like Coltrane or Miles Davis, and I read and read and read. But I find myself lately really hard to read even for pleasure. I'm constantly highlighting, writing, and taking notes. I can't read and enjoy. I have to like write in the margin or circle something.
What
can't
are you
just
reading?
read. I mean, like I was trying to read. So for pleasure, I was recently reading Crime and Punishment because I hadn't started that. Otherwise, I don't read a lot of leisurely books.
Right.
I read a lot of.
Who reads Crime and Punishment for leisure?
Yeah, well, what I mean is it's technically fiction and it's not nonfiction. That's, most of the stuff I read is nonfiction.
I admire it. I'm saying, like, I think it's a great thing that you're reading it. I'm just like, you're a rounding error there. Who reads Crime and Punishment for leisure?
Yeah, I haven't read a book for leisure, like straight up, fiction in years, I think.
Hey, I just thought of something. If we did like once a month, if I assigned roles to everyone and we were to read a Shakespearean piece, would people be interested in reading some Shakespeare once in a while, or even just plays?
You have to read an iambic pentameter and
like we could do plays as well. Like
there's a delay, but we could try it.
Mm.
I did just listen to an interview with Harold Bloom. I don't know if you like him, Pangburn.
Bloom.
Harold Bloom, he's a literary critic, and he's written very extensively on Shakespeare, and he's
I'm
like
not
one
familiar with him.
Appreciators of Shakespeare. I think you would actually like him because he's
Bookmark.
traditionally he's a very like left wing professor. Like he's very liberal the Yale English professor, but at the same time he's like he's written whole books about how he hates how English departments have been overtaken by social justice.
Yeah, interesting. Okay,
and he's like
page here.
He's a liberal and not like a lefty authoritarian.
The Western Canon.
Yeah.
1994.
He wrote a book called called The Western Canon, which basically alienated him from the rest of English academia because all his coworkers,
Well,
what do you
mean? The radical minds. So many of them exist in the.
That's from '94.
Theater.
That's not even new. That's he was talking about that in '94.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, they're asking us to read. What was the quote that he said? So what was the name of the guy that wrote Don Quixote? Cervantes?
Mm-hmm. Miguel Cervantes.
Yeah, he said, if they were asking us to read Cervantes, I would not protest. I think that's what he said. They're not. He's like, but they're asking us to read very mediocre people solely based on their ethnicity. And then he lists out people who are actually phenomenal writers, who are of all different ethnicities. But he's like, but they don't count because they're not political enough.
Yeah, that is a fair point, man. It seems that things hop on the New York Times bestseller list, and it's almost like the people curating the list itself are virtue signaling.
I
Do you
have
know what I
a
mean?
very strange thing to say about the New York Times bestsellers list. After working with some people who are always trying to get on that list and spend so much time trying to get on that list, when you start running events and people are like, can you make an order to have 5,000 of my books available at this event? And then I'm like, we aren't even going to sell 500. And they forego their fee even to instead purchase those books.
The publisher?
The author.
Oh, they're buying their own. Oh, I see what you're saying.
So,
all right.
Instead, like when some of these authors, and it's not all authors, but when some of these authors who are obsessed with getting on the New York Times bestsellers list, when you're organizing events with them, and they have their set fee that they're going to make, and there's a request that comes from the agent or from whoever, and they say, yeah, so how many books were you thinking of ordering for? How many of my new book are you thinking of ordering for this? Oh, I don't know. Usually we sell maybe 50 to 100 with a crowd this size. Oh, I think you guys should order a few thousand, and if it needs to come out of the the speaker fee, that's fine. Then I'm like, well, why would we do that? We're just going to have a whole bunch of books left over, and we're going to have nothing left to do with them. That's fine. I'm sure the venue will be able to do something with them or whatever. It's like there are some people in a disingenuous way trying to pad their how they look on that stage.
Right. Well, also, I mean, if someone actually purchases those books, this is kind of like the issue with this GME short sale. Like, okay, buy the books. They may not sell, but you're going to see a bump in the numbers as far as sales for New York Times is concerned. So do it.
Yeah.
To the Mood Boys.
See, and that's a weird thing. And then when you
pump and dump,
and then you really start seeing when you get a genuine book out there that's really doing it on its own, like 12 Rules for Life, or one of those gems that comes along in the intellectual community. Regardless of what you think about it, it becomes so interesting that people must read it. Then you get some genuine people that have really made it. But yeah, I'm just saying that I've seen evidence of when people have a new book coming out as a marketing strategy, they want to get on that list, and that makes sense from a capitalist perspective. But people should not look at that list to think that it necessarily means that the merits of the book got them on that list.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But yeah, so anyway, so I was listening to Harold Bloom, and he was talking so much about Shakespeare and about I think it was The Tempest. And
The Tempest? Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, definitely made me want to read that. So I'd be down to do that.
Sweet. Yeah, we could, and one of the more, but like, I think it's just cool for everyone to engage in playing a bit of a role, and kind of recording it as like a radio show. Like a radio performance.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it would be live. I think that does sound fun if it's live.
We would do it live on YouTube as like kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, I would join if there is a spot available for me. I don't want to take any active member spot though, of course, because I know I just joined here today.
We're all, everyone's. I don't even think we would have to do auditions. Just like kind of. Assign roles. Maybe I will do a bit of casting because I know people, but for those I don't know, we'll find something for them too. I mean, of course, Ola's got to play one of the witches. Of course.
This has all been leading up to that. Nice one. Respect to you.
Bruce can be the king who dies in the first scene.
No. I actually did play King Henry VIII.
Did you?
In high school, yeah.
Oh wow, that was your high school play. That's kind of a boring play, that one.
We were overachievers.
Actually,
We
that's
actually
very
made it,
thick material. Holy crap.
We made it interesting by creating fight scenes.
Oh yeah.
So that was fun. So like we got to orchestrate, and we like had the props department make us some swords that were made of like a really thin wood that when we hit them hard enough together, they would like explode. Kind of, and
cool.
Like it was almost like dust, like paper dust, or it was like an OSB material.
When I played
or MDF.
Yeah, when
cool.
I played Macduff, we were using actual stage steel swords, so
that's crazy.
full swing. And actually, you know what? I am going to go through the effort of finding that because I have a video of my final fight with Macbeth at the end, and I'll post it in Discord here as a cool thing. But it's
I think Pang would make a good Iago.
Oh yeah, Iago is a role I have always wanted to play. I actually
Cold would make Iago. It's Stone Cold for Iago.
Yeah.
Yes, actually, yes. Stone would be a good Iago.
If you or how about Othello? I played a white Othello, if you could believe that, just in a shortened version. Yeah. If you bethink
That's
yourself
racist.
of any crime unreconciled as yet to heaven and grace, solicit for it straight. Down, Desdemona, out, strumpet. Strangler with your pillow. Show's over.
I'll be playing Desdemona, obviously.
I thought you were gonna. Yeah, I figured more. You were more of an Ophelia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, I die.
Yeah. You know, it is actually. You seem to be the person that, rather than drown themselves, would put up a fight as you.
I am.
smothered.
I'm going to play Ophelia, and I'm going to put up a fight, and in the third act, I'll still be there, getting the dagger in the hand as he goes down, and shouting, "The rest is silence."
Yes. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I find Shakespeare interesting. I'm definitely not a buff. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've had not near enough of it in my life in the past 4 years.
I do have something interesting though. I have The Big Lebowski written in Shakespeare, so it's a play.
Nice.
Yeah, I gotta find it. It's right here somewhere. It's pretty cool, pretty fun.
What's the best Shakespeare film?
Oh, okay. If I had to, if it's Shakespeare that's ever been filmed, then it's definitely. I'm gonna post the clip right now because it's on YouTube for free.
Great.
It's definitely, and you guys will recognize a lot of famous actors from this.
Is it much ado about nothing?
It's Macbeth starring Ian McKellen. And it is fucking like
Dent.
Honestly, guys. Yeah, with Judi Dent. Oh my god, I'm posting it right now. Please take the time to watch
free
this.
At the moment, the whole thing.
It's 100% free. Look how young Ian McKellen is in that thumbnail. But it is like
the 70s, was it?
Yeah, it was. Let's see.
Early 70s movie. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, it's sickly brilliant. But then, of course, I think to embody what Shakespeare was and is, and everything that I love about Shakespeare is embodied in Shakespeare in Love.
Did you see? Oh yeah, Shakespeare in Love. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's my favorite film.
And did you see? I think it is Much Ado About Nothing, but it could be a different.
Yeah.
It could be a different one. It's one of the comedies, and it's got. I thought that's what you were going to say. It's got a massive cast. It's got Michael Keaton in it, all sorts of people in it.
Yeah, I saw that. It was quite good.
Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, Kenneth Branagh. He's always in the Shakespeare film. But I have on my arm right here, I don't know if you guys can see my film, but I have Much Ado About Nothing tattooed right on my arm. I will live in thy heart, die in thy lap, and be buried in thy eyes. And it's basically Shakespeare using the orgasm, the act of orgasming, and equating it to death, dying in thy lap and be buried in thy eyes. So dying, and then you're reborn again. That feeling of like, hopefully,
the little death.
Yeah, like refreshment feeling of being reborn after you orgasm. So, yeah,
good. Well, if Carissa might be the best one to ask about it, but it's often said that most of us dislike Shakespeare because of the way we learned it in school. It put us off for life. And there's a big campaign to get Shakespeare out of school, saying it does no good. I personally would put more Shakespeare in school. I think you don't get to learn about it outside of school. You've got to learn it in school. It stays with you forever, and it allows you a key into it for the rest of your life. You don't. Not everyone's going to like it. But Carissa might disagree with me. Carissa might be.
I do agree with you.
Oh,
I didn't mind it because like it was pretty easy.
The key
but
to
that was the only reason I didn't mind it. My English teacher that taught Shakespeare though was an asshole, so I
that's not going to help.
Didn't like it for that reason.
And also a key thing to Shakespeare is that it is meant to be stood up. You should not be sitting down reading Shakespeare in a classroom.
Yeah.
Stand it up. Give some positioning in it. It's amazing what will happen to students when they start feeling like they are becoming part of the story. I can't stress this enough that this idea of sitting down with Shakespeare and reading it and analyzing it like it's an insect is wrong. It's got to be stood up. It's got to be theatrical. Or else it's going to be, people are, of course, going to say, get this shit out of the curriculum if it's not done properly.
Well, Carissa, which Shakespeare plays have you learned, or play have you learned? I mean, I did Romeo and Juliet when I was.
Yeah, I think we only just had to do Romeo and Juliet, but we had to write essays on it and stuff, which is, I believe, what Pangburn is opposing here.
No, but you do. If you're studying it, you do have to do that, and it stands you, I think, really well throughout your life that you studied at least one play, because it's a touchstone for us, which I'm using purposely because touchstone is a character in another Shakespeare play, and I think it's a brilliant word. And cultural touchstones really help us all progress, help our cultures feel more cohesive, help us all progress and discuss things with each other. I think it's a real danger to take away some basic foundation stones from the whole Western education system. At least should all have some very basic ones, and Shakespeare should be one of them, so that we can all talk to each other in the Shakespearean way.
That is an interesting defense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't really think of any other cultural pieces like that.
Oh, there's millions. I mean, all the classics. We could all be doing Dante. We could be doing the Iliad. We could do so much. We don't all do the same ones. But I think Shakespeare we could easily all do. And
I wouldn't mind doing that for the Odyssey.
Gives you great way to talk to people about. And this is something that Jordan Peterson likes to go on about. I know people are polarized on him. But narrations give you something to hold on to and talk to someone else about big concepts, big life things. You can talk through. It's just as easy to talk through fairy tales, in my opinion. But you can talk through a tale you all understand. You can say something is just like Rapunzel, or just like Romeo and Juliet, and people can get a really big idea at once. And I think these things are vital to our progress.
And we totally get that through regular Hollywood media, like, Harry Potter, Star Wars, and The Matrix. Those have become highly
on that list.
I wasn't about to.
Two households, both alike in dignity. In fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean.
Romeo, let's go through the whole thing. We can do it all in 2 minutes if we're quick enough. A plague on both our houses. The end.
And then you can't forget, in my vampire musical, I ripped off, just to give a nod to Shakespeare, the end of R&J. A glooming peace this morning with it brings. The sun for sorrow will not show his head. Go hence to have more talk of these sad things. Some shall be pardoned and some punished. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo.
Scene.
Yep. Excellent.
I'm gonna go eat dinner now. Yeah. Okay.
Fair enough.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you, man.
See ya.
Bye.
I guess I belong to the segment of the population that does absolutely nothing for.
Fair enough.
But
Did you ever, Pete? Did you ever watch Romeo and Juliet, the film? Is it Baz Luhrmann
Yeah.
with Leonardo DiCaprio in it and Claire Danes?
no,
Pete, that? Would you give that a go sometime and see does it do anything for you? You might have to have subtitles up on screen because they just do it all in the Shakespearean language. It's fantastic.
it'd probably give me a good nap.
Yeah, and I would even
Try
suggest
it first.
before that one, because that one is quite thick, you might relate more to even Shakespeare in Love. I don't know if you've seen that, but Shakespeare in Love is quite accessible.
I'm a bad audience for that type of thing.
But you want to know about Shakespeare
guys,
a little
welcome
bit before you do that, if you've already turned off
Sure.
Shakespeare.
Yeah, just all that stuff is outside my wheelhouse.
Lion King.
Well,
Outside my wheelhouse.
Lion King is essentially Othello.
Hamlet.
Hamlet, great
Mhm.
play.
I would say no.
Lion
I'd say
King.
Lion King is essentially Hamlet.
Although you don't have the brother dynamic, right? Of Iago, because Iago is essentially.
Maybe I don't know Othello as well, but I know Hamlet.
Yeah. Yeah. You got the Iago character in Scar, very much with Othello being Mufasa, but there's a lot of these fairy tales are taken right out of Shakespeare, almost all of them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, a lot of modern cinema is reflective.
Oh yeah. See, that's
All that.
that's the thing that's so brilliant about Shakespeare. He literally was, and that's why I just call him like the barometer of what is human. Like he really did weather and understand and put to the page what humanity is, and the struggles and the perseverances, the idea of the fool, the importance of the fool, like all of these things, like Shakespeare put on the page in a way that people are like, oh yeah, that is how we are. That's just people like Shakespeare and Einstein just hardly ever come along, like the artistic genius of both of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I give Shakespeare a lot of credit for what happened in my favorite era of music.
Oh yeah,
which is the classical period opera,
yeah,
by far. And most of those stories, or at least the way that they portrayed them, were largely based on a lot of what Shakespeare's writing 100 years before that. Because I mean, Hamlet's sometime around 1600, so
yeah,
that's pretty early for that sort of that sort of stuff.
It's like Shakespeare wrote the fundamental equation, the fundamental artistic equations that to derive humanity out of. Like if you want to get humanity in your art, it's like it's a rich source of equations to start with. And like I brought up the fool character, like we all know that the fool often lives a very happy, prosperous, like joyful life. And by fool meaning the ignorant people in our society that laugh things off and they don't really know their ass from a hole in the ground. But
yeah,
and it doesn't mean that they're not intelligent. Sorry, smart. They're very smart, but they're not highly intelligent. But their smartness and the wisdom that can come out of them, that really does shape the whole kind of the bigger picture in some of these plays. You start realizing that, oh, the key figure in this play was the gravedigger. You know what the gravedigger had to say in Hamlet, or in Macbeth. I mean, it's like all of these, all of these subtle ways that the everyman, and this is why the groundlings loved Shakespeare so much, that the groundling character, the one that they could identify with most, was really the kind of the unknowing mastermind of what was going on, and understanding it the most completely.
Well, the fool archetype, and like you said, it's not just a term of derision. So it's not just like you're an idiot. or you're a bad person. That's how it's used now. Like, I pity the fool kind of silliness. That archetype's as old as the Old Testament.
Welcome to sure.
So, like, pretty well established that this sort of person exists, which is ignorant but unaware and actually relatively smart, and thinks that they have their own sets of answers, but they answer to no one, or they're not interested in true wisdom.
Yeah, some of these ideas for sure. Shakespeare, Shakespeare was like any other genius, is sitting on the shoulders of giants before him, and just like I would argue the
Homer,
the Bronze Age,
anything else,
people who wrote down the scripture as well. And like you said, Bruce, to begin this chat today, it's really hard to find someone who actually comes up with an original concept like relativity, relativity was anticipated before Einstein. Well, yeah, the anticipation was there that there would be something like relativity, or no, not even like relativity, that there will be something that is going to unify the known forces, let's say. Well, one of the interesting things was years prior to Einstein, even Edgar Allan Poe was making these sorts of statements in his stories about where astrological things are in relation to us, like stars and planets. And it's like, maybe they're just farther away. And he was totally anticipating relativity. And that he doesn't get credit for that, which is strange. But obviously Einstein came up with a more tangible explanation. Yeah, I guess it depends on how deep you're going into it. If someone's, this is where like getting that mixture of, yes, genius mathematician, but even a higher genius in artistic inspiration, in that Einstein could actually paint the picture for you, because he had the understanding, the mathematical understanding, but as well just the creativity for the model, which I think shouldn't go without praise. Well, yeah, I think that a lot of times art brings forth the concept and math brings forth some explanation, typically. Yeah, or the artists bring the imagination, and math attempts to explain what is as opposed to what ought to be. Yeah, demonstrate what is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which arguably require both, where I think some people get a pretty myopic view of what we should do as a society, and they'll like to throw out things like art and say, well, all we need is like tangible science or engineering to have meaning, purpose, and quality progression. And I don't know that you get progression without some form of artistic endeavor.
Would we have the cell phone without Star Trek?
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. Didn't H.P. Lovecraft do something like that, or am I wrong as well? Like before Star Trek? I don't remember now. The cell phone or something similar to that. I can't remember. But yeah, you're right. The imagination is a fueler of invention. And so artists tend to be imaginative.
Need both sides.
Yeah, I mean, you do need both sides. And I think what's interesting is the engineering tasks seem daunting for most people because they require large amounts of skill, maybe even IQ. But I think a lot of people discount their ability to be imaginative. I think most people could be artistic in some way, but not necessarily. But not originally creative. Easily. That's a unique thing. It's like no, that's true. Yeah, it's like, and of course, I don't mean that people can't draw their own picture or write their own song. I'm talking about like fundamentally changing what can be done about a painting or a piano, like fundamentally changing
the game. I mean, even something as simple as like reaching into the piano and plucking one of the strings to get a D note out of it, as just like it's like not everyone thinks of that, right?
Yeah.
It's not even something that would have ever come to their mind and many people's mind. And it just doesn't manifest itself. It doesn't seem like that can exist in reality until someone comes around and does it. And then once they do it, it's very simple. Anyone could do it.
But your Eddie Van Halen's.
Right.
Yeah. Eddie. And what's interesting about him is Eddie, like,